Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of my dining table build. Behind me here, I've got 2 book match pecan slabs, and one of them is going to give me a unique opportunity. Let's see what we got. All right, so this is the base I've built. Parts 1 and 2 will be in the description below if you want to see how I built that. So what are we working with today? So this was initially a 5-inch thick piece of pecan that I bought, supposedly kiln dried. I resawed it into two 2.5-inch slabs, and it turns out it was not kiln dried, and a couple of days after resawing it, it turned into a potato chip, for lack of a better term. So this is what we're going to fix today. And fortunately, it's only the one side. As you'll see here, the other side is a little bit thicker. I didn't get my measurements right, but there's enough meat there. I can resaw it, or I can flatten that, no problem, and we'll be off to the races. Okay, so I've got a couple of very crude graphics here, but I think I can get the point across. So, assuming I was to take that whole taco slab and put it on my flattening table, I would basically flatten it like this and like this. So what I start out with here, and we'll just call it 3 inches of thickness to use a round number, I would probably end up with something around 1 inch of thickness to get it perfectly flat. We don't want to do that. We need it to be a little thicker. So to get around that, we're going to cut the board into thirds lengthwise. And what that does is it shortens up these radii here so that I'm taking much less material off. And then what I'll have to do is once I get the tops flat, I'll joint the edges, glue it all back together, and we'll have one piece again, and it will be A, flat, and B, I will not have lost as much material. So let's get started. I bought a track saw the other day secondhand, and this is my first time actually using it, so I'm just kind of messing around here, but very quickly I realized that it does not cut all the way through, so I had to drag it outside to the sawmill and use that to cut the board into 3 pieces. Okay, so I've got my 3 pieces cut apart here, and you can see just by cutting them apart, it is a lot less of a potato chip shape. There we go. But this face right here is really angled, so we will work to correct that. But first, I'm going to flatten this other piece over here since it's already up there. And here we go. Just want to show you what this looks like first. So this is rough. It was cut with a chainsaw mill, so lots of tooth marks, a lot of work to do here. If you're new around here, this is my homemade slab flattening table. Works pretty well. It's just a cheap wind router with a slab slayer bit from RIP Precision Tools.
All right, here's the after. This is not sanded at all, but it's pretty damn smooth.
All right, so I have the first of 3 of my slab pieces that I'm trying to flatten out. We've got 2 problems here. That end there is significantly thicker than that end down there. That is very obvious in the video here. So we're gonna do what we can to preserve all the wood down there. Secondly, we have a bow in it. So we've got to try and, again, work with what we've got. Trying to go no less than 1.25 inches thick. So let's see how it goes. All right, there's one down. It's about 1 9/16 inches thick right there in the middle. So we'll knock the next 2 out. All right, so there's all 3 pieces. They've been through planer. They're 1.5 inches thick, which is as thin as I dare go, and they are now perfectly flat. So when I say perfectly flat, it's pretty close. All right, so last night I was able to get all 3 of my pieces from my tabletop here flattened. So now it's time to join them back together. And I got this track saw secondhand from a buddy the other day for a good price. It's green, but it's not the the expensive green, if you know what I mean. It's a grizzly. And from what I hear, the cut of a track saw is good enough that you don't need to joint afterwards, that you can just stick them straight together. So I'm not saying I don't believe it, I'm just saying I've never seen it. So let's give it a go right now and see what kind of results we get. Eventually I have a couple of synapses in my brain start firing halfway and realize that there's a dust port on the back of the saw that I can put my shop back up to. So cut me a little slack, eventually I'll figure it out. I think maybe one light pass over the jointer each would be good, just to clean it up. Maybe the surface isn't perfectly clean. Maybe there's a couple burrs or something. All right, that's better. Still not perfect, but unfortunately, I'm gonna blame this thing. It's great. For short pieces, there's nothing better. But the length of the bed for long pieces like this is just a problem. It needs to be a 6-foot bed, and I just don't have the money for it right now. So we will get this glued up. I think some glue and some sawdust will make up for these little gaps here. But it should be fine. I have to say, this glue up went really well. The pieces were very flat. Everything matched up very well. There's a couple of gaps, but what I'm doing here is I'm trimming it down to 19 and a half inches, so it'll fit in the planer. And I'm just gonna take a couple of very, very light passes off of it, just to clean things up a little bit. See here, at this point, I'm not actually taking anything off of it. I'm just trying to slowly sneak up onto the point where the blades start to cut. And then really, again, just mostly knocking the glue off, and then a couple of hairline areas where it wasn't exactly level. So very, very light passes here and on both sides, and it worked out perfectly. All right, so here's this half done. Obviously there's still some gaps where the glue up didn't go quite so well, but we'll fill those in. But there's also a lot of places like here where there are no gaps, so I'm pretty happy with that, and it's a beautiful piece of wood. Now, I've got to cut this thing down to 19 and a half inches, and it is 2 inches thick currently, and this thing is definitely not. It's closer to 1.4, I think. So we got 6/10 of an inch to take off this thing. It's going to be a lot of wood. All right, these two halves fit together like a government project, and now we know why. It is not even close to being square. So I lost some camera footage is what happened. I flattened I ran the second piece through the planer and tried to put them together and realized that I had some angle issues there. So I decided it was another good idea to manhandle these massive 20-inch wide planks across my short jointer. Obviously not a good idea, but we got the job done. All right, so I just have these kind of loosely clamped together right now just to check fitment, and they are uneven. This side's a little bit higher, which is what's causing this kind of shadow here, but I've got them pulled together so that there's no gap between them, so I can live with that. So I think the next step is gonna be putting clamps under them, getting them glued up, and trying to figure out how to get them level. That's gonna be the trick, because like I said, there's about a 1/16 of an inch right there, and that I cannot live with. So as I mentioned, the left piece here was a little bit low, so I went over to my scrap shelves there in the background and found a couple of really thin pieces of cherry and stuffed it under there, and I got the job done. So spread some glue and stick them together and move on down the road. So this glue up went surprisingly well. I didn't want to jinx it, but I'm very happy with the overall product. So as we are sneaking up here on the 10-minute mark, actually we're past it now, those of you that are still with me and that are still awake, I'm probably going to cut this one here and make a fourth finishing this pig, because there's a lot of work to do filling those knot holes you just saw and cracks and all kinds of other stuff. So thanks for tagging along, and we'll see you soon on the